So what can obese individuals teach you about strength training? Now, contrary to what most people would assume about someone who has a lot of excess weight, someone who's obese, is that they are strong. They have these strong muscles for moving that body around. Most people think that that's the case, but in fact, if you control for body size and you look at muscle mass between people, obese individuals actually have less muscle mass. And mainly it's due to the fact that they don't move as much. Now, genetically, some people might be obese and have more muscle mass, but what we're talking about is on average, when compared to the same size as someone else, you would look at that and you would say, well, we'd expect this person to have a lot more muscle mass, but in fact, they have a lot less and they just don't move. So, well, how does that work? Because they still have to move at some level. They still have to pick that body up and move around. They move less, but when they do movement, and this is the key that you want to take away for strength training, is when you move and it is taxing, you have to become more efficient at moving that weight around. If you are going to get up and down from, your car to the parking lot and things like that and just do your normal movement, you start to become more and more efficient at it. And efficiency means, in the context of movement, less muscles. The body wants to take the path of least resistance. It does not want to put out more effort than it needs to do a certain task. So if I have excess weight, I'm probably going to not want to move much, right? And that might be one of the reasons why I got myself in that position in the first place, is because I don't enjoy exercising and I do enjoy eating. That's a perfect combination to have excess weight. But when I do move, my body says, hey, look, all this excess weight that's on you, we want to find an efficient way of doing that versus taxing the system. So when it comes to the gym, it's the complete opposite. We want to tax our system, meaning we want to stimulate our muscles. If I want to get stronger, if I want to get more muscles, build more muscle, I have to stimulate. And this is why when I say things, and I've made videos like this and people got very upset, like kettlebell training is nonsense. When I look at movements, functional training, I can do the same thing with functional training. The reason why, and it's not necessarily nonsense, it's better than doing nothing, of course, but what I mean in the context of human movement is when I do movements like that, I am working on a movement, and my body wants to take the path of least resistance, the most efficient path to do any movement. Anytime I do anything, same thing with cardio, I am going to start to use less muscles over time. I'm going to get more efficient at the movement. And this is why someone who, if they stay the same body weight, nothing changes in their body, let's just say, and they do swimming, and they start swimming on day one, and they don't know anything about technique or the movement efficiency of getting through the water, on day one, they will burn more calories than on day 1,000. If they just keep doing it every single day, they'll burn less calories over time because their body will get more efficient. In the gym, when we want to stimulate, when we want to work our muscles, we want to do the opposite. So if I'm focused on movements, do you see how my body will, over time, become more efficient, meaning it will use less muscles, which means less stimulation, which means less results. So when it comes to training, we want to be inefficient. We actually want to find ways of making the movement more difficult so that I use more muscle groups so I get more stimulation. When I'm focused on trying to do a certain movement by swinging or bouncing or jumping or doing anything in that context, my body will learn how to do that more efficiently. And maybe that's your goal. Maybe you want to be really good at swinging kettlebells around or doing functional training. But for my purposes, I look at that and I go, that's not why I'm there. I'm there as a means to an end. The kettlebell swing, for me, if I was going to do it, would be a means to an end, meaning I want to use that movement to get stronger. Well, you can do anything. If you haven't done any sort of activity before, you can do anything and you're going to get results as long as it's more than what you were doing before. The principle of overload and the principle of progression still holds true. So as long as I am challenging myself more than I did before, progressive overload, if I progressively challenge myself, or if I go from no challenge to swinging a kettlebell, I will get results. Of course, you'll get results doing anything, functional training, cardio, anything, you'll get results initially. But is that the most efficient way? And is that going to keep you getting results once you've learned how to do the movement and you've built that initial base of strength? Again, your body will become more efficient and you will use less muscles, meaning less stimulation. So the goal, as far as I see it, when it comes to strength training, building muscle in the gym, is to stimulate. How do I do that? I do that by challenging the muscle. And I can do that by pushing up against a wall. I can be doing things very, very slowly, all right? As long as I'm putting out this big amount of effort, I have to be challenging myself when it comes to pushing against that weight or pulling against that weight or lunging into that weight or hinging into that weight or whatever movement that I'm doing. If I have enough challenge, I am going to stimulate those muscles. And it doesn't matter if you go fast or slow, but prefer to go slow because then you're going to decrease the risk of injury because you're going to keep the peak forces down, especially on those changes of directions. So you can do things safer, but at the same time, that is getting more towards our goal because I am just focused on the stimulation of those muscles. By being inefficient, if I go slower, I'm not going to then start to use momentum. I'm not going to start using other muscle groups or my body's anatomy to be able to get through the movement. I'm going to strictly keep it on the muscles. And again, that's why I'm there. I'm there at the gym when I lift weights to create the most stimulus I can. So I actually want to be less efficient with my movement. When I do my exercises and I'm doing them on my last repetition, I'm pushing against the weight, but the weight is beating me. I'm pushing forward and the weight is bringing it down towards me. And so I don't look very efficient, all right? The goal is to move the weight, right? No. For me, the goal is not to move the weight. The goal is to stimulate my muscle fibers. If the goal turned into me trying to swing the weight up and down or move that weight, I would look very stupid if I'm pushing against the weight and the weight is pushing back against me. But what that's telling me is that I'm exhausting all my muscle fibers. If I've done 5, 6, 7 repetitions and on that 8th or 9th rep, I'm pushing up and the weight is not going anywhere, and I continue to push against that, even though I'm not going anywhere, I get more stimulus, which means I get more muscle fibers in that target group to fire, which means I am getting closer to my goal. I'm getting my body to say, ooh, this was challenging. Hey, we've stimulated these muscle fibers. Whereas if I do something that looks more efficient, I swing, I bounce, I pop the weight, I do some sort of coordinated dance type movement that a lot of these exercises have turned into, my body will learn how to get more efficient with that versus trying to stimulate the muscles. So when you look at and you compare, if you look at the bodies of obese people and you wonder why don't they have more muscle, is because your body wants to find those paths of least resistance. And it doesn't matter if you're an obese individual who's carrying a heavier leg, all right, every time they take a step, or someone who's swinging a weight around. And the same thing applies to me when I'm in the gym. If I'm doing my exercises and even doing something slow, you start to find ways of being more efficient at it. And this is why you want to find ways of challenging yourself versus trying to be more efficient at it. Meaning, okay, I got more efficient, I got stronger at the weight, let's go for more of a challenge. Let's do more repetitions, or let's do more weight. Or, right, let's think about how I'm doing the weight, right? Maybe I'm starting to, although I feel like I'm going slow, I'm starting to speed up my repetitions or on certain ranges, right? Or certain areas in the range of motion. You have to be cognizant of this because this happens subconsciously. It happens without you knowing, because doing work for your body is not what we want to do. We want to be efficient. We don't want to use muscle fibers. We don't want to burn calories. Your body will find ways of becoming more efficient, just like the obese individual who has less muscle. that proves to you right there that your body, no matter what, even if it's lugging around excess weight, will become more efficient. So when you take that information to the gym, become more inefficient. Find slow, controlled ways of moving the weight. And when it gets difficult, instead of hoisting it up and throwing your back into it to get the weight up, just keep pushing. Those target muscle groups are going to ask for reinforcements. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And you get more stimulus, which means you end up getting more results. So that's it for today. When it comes to strength training, muscle building in the gym, we want to find ways of becoming more inefficient so that we get more stimulus for our muscle fibers.